Let's get some more reaction now. I'm joined by Zwelinzima, Vavi, SAFTU's General Secretary, and Dr. Mvuyisi Mzukwa, Chairperson of the South African Medical Association. Dr. Vavi, good to have you. Good afternoon. Thank you very much for your time. And Dr. Mzukwa, thank you very much for coming on. Dr. Vavi, let me start with you. $400 million is nothing to sniff at, even though it's not money that goes directly to the government. It goes to NGOs. Should we go to all that hassle to try and explain to Donald Trump?
I wonder if we can explain anything to Donald Trump that he will hear. And because South Africans must appreciate that Donald Trump is not only on a war path against South Africa, but is also on a war path against the rest of the world. You know that he is antagonizing Mexico, Canada. He's threatening to take over the Panama Strip. He is threatening to take over the Gaza Strip. He's fighting against people's choices. He's basically positioning himself as a semi-god. Now, South Africa has a history, and it has a constitution as a result of that history. We vow with that constitution. That constitution offers all South Africans the most basic rights, which they simply would not enjoy if they were living in America that is led by Trump today. Yes, we must talk to Trump in every way possible, but we must not suck up to him. We must not go down to lick his boots. We must not accept any money that is based on conditions. Worst of all, conditions that will ask us to abandon the transformation and to forget about the 400 years of colonialization, which Trump's generations did nothing about, by the way. We must remember that the Trump of this world, the Republicans, the political establishment of the United States were siding with apartheid during the darkest days of South Africa's struggle against the apartheid system. It comes with no surprise now that they want to reinforce the status quo that favors the minority that was brutally suppressing us as the black majority. It comes with no surprise now that they are telling us that it is okay that the land is owned 70% by 7% of the population, and that we must live with that.
Yeah. Dr. Mzukwa, I mean, of all the agreements that are in place, he's not going for the trade agreements yet, at least, but he is going now for this PEPFAR funding. Is it a case of hit them where it hurts the most? Are we going to be bruised out of this?
Good afternoon to you and to your viewers, and thanks for having me. I do believe that it is going to have an impact for at least for the next 3 months that we're told about. You must recall that this is contributing about 17% of the funding from the Presidential Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief, shortly called PEPFAR. So I do think that we, like the government has already done, to have some contingency plans, you know, because it is going to have a negative impact on patient care, but also the staffing in the country. And I do think that the sustainability framework needs to be accelerated in that regard.
There are those who are saying, well, I mean, it's part of the executive order itself. It cites the Expropriation Act, but it cites other policies as well, which the Trump administration believe are disadvantaging the white minority in the country. Would NHI be one of those, you think?
No, I don't think NHI is involved in this, though there are many people who are not happy about it, including Sama, by the way. But I do think it's not part of it. I think it, in the main, affects, you know, the HIV management in the country, and it applies it affects us in many ways. Because if you look, for example, patient care, this abrupt cessation of care to patients, there is no planning, there's no handover, you know, and there was no plan in place. So you can imagine what is going to happen to other programs, trying to eliminate the transmission of HIV from one person to another, like PrEP or pre-exposure prophylaxis and many other projects that were in place. So, and also, what has been announced by the Deputy President, this multi-month supply from 3 months to 6 months, all of those things are going to be affected. But like I said, we need a government that is not going to be crying, but a government that is going to get together and say, what is it that we can do for our people now, so that we do not have people defaulting on treatment, but also having no means of continuing with their treatment.
Yeah. Dr. Vavi, do you think this is really about domestic policy, Expropriation Act, or is this more about South Africa's stance in the global affairs, i.e. South Africa taking Israel to the ICJ?
It's a combination of both. Look, it is no coincidence that these raft of announcements come exactly a day or two or just about after Trump has met with that Palestine butcher in the form of the racist Zionist Netanyahu. I see there's no coincidence there. Clearly, he has been pumped by Netanyahu to go for South Africa so that we can join others who know what Netanyahu and Israel is doing in Gaza and is wrong, but who fear the power and the vengeance that will be unleashed by the American status quo. There is also a factor, and I know that the AfriForum was in a press conference yesterday trying to do a damage control. It is a fact that they were posting about their trip, a successful trip to the United States of America, where they lobbied the politicians there against the pieces of legislation that they believe will undermine the status quo, the privileges that they have inherited from the apartheid era. And they are opposed to BILA because BILA will allow the Department of Labor to stop schools from using language policy to keep black people out of the schools. They are opposed to the national health insurance that will ensure that everyone have an equal access to health care. They are opposed to Expropriation Act because they don't want us to disturb a piece, the 1913 Land Act that confined the 80% of the population to 13% of the land and handed over the 80% of the land to 13% of the population. They want that status quo to remain. If you disturb that status quo, they shout on top of their voices that there is a small group of South Africans whose future is totally being undermined by the government. So it is the two factors that we are dealing with here. And on both scores, I don't think that South Africa, at least from the perspective of SAFTU, should let go of the pressure that it is exacting on Israel to stop the genocide against the people of Palestine. It is the right thing to do the world over, even if people don't come up in public to say so. But South Africa have won so much respect and admiration for taking the Israeli racist government to the International Criminal Court. And can you believe it? Trump now says the investigators, the people who are investigating that genocide, are going to experience personalized sanctions, and they will be declared persona non grata in the United States of America. This guy is obviously pulling out of the multinational institution. He has already threatened to pull out of the World Trade Organization. He threatened to pull out of the World Health Organization. He has a veto power in the United Nations Security Council. He's very happy with that, and he wants us to be ruled by him. The American first is interpreted by Trump as meaning that he will do everything in support of his multinational corporation, which he now wants them to move to the Greenland, to Canada, to rebuild the Gaza Strip at the expense of the millions of people that are going to be rooted out. He's telling them that he's going to send them elsewhere in the world whilst he's rebuilding their own country for the benefit of the multinational corporations from America. This is just a crime against humanity.
Dr. Mzukwa, finally, I know you're saying that the government, of course, should come up with some intervention in the interim, at least in the next 90 days. 17% of this funding coming from PEPFAR. Is it time for South Africa to look elsewhere so that it doesn't find itself in this situation again?
Yes, thank you so much. I think what we need to do as a country also, we need to look at our resources, I know there are austerity measures in place, but we've always maintained the fact that you can't apply those in healthcare because we're dealing with people's lives. And I think it's time that we relook at that. But the second aspect is the issue of transparency and also the issue of accountability. If we continue to bleed money in the state through corruption, we are going to face times like these where we've been dependent to foreign aid and we now have to stand on our own. So we implore government to really take corruption in the healthcare sector seriously, so that we don't find ourselves having to beg other nations. I don't think we should be going out anywhere. I think we should be looking at our resources and managing them properly. We can't be, as Africans, lose the dignity that we've lost for so many years, going up and about and begging people who are where we are today because of that mentality. I think it's time that we stand on our own and do what we're supposed to do as Africans.
Appreciate your time, gentlemen. Thanks so much for coming on. Dr. Mvuyisi Mzukwa, Chairperson of the South African Medical Association, and Zwelinzima Vavi, SAFTU's General Secretary. News Feed PM continues in a moment. Stay with us.